personal views and opinions expressed by our podcast guests are their own and are not legal advice or official statements by their organizations. Hello, my name is Debbie Reynolds. They call me the Data Diva. This is the Data Diva Talks Privacy podcast, where we discuss data privacy issues with industry leaders around the world with information that businesses need to know now. I have a very special guest on the show, all the way from Ohio, Michael Roche. He is the founder, executive partner, and general manager of Fintechnology Group. Welcome.
Hey, how you doing, everybody?
Yeah. Your specialty is authentication, AI, fintech, and fraud, right?
Yep, you nailed it. Forces you to put that in there. Yeah, that's where I'm at for this week. Maybe I'll change it next week.
Well, right. We met on LinkedIn. I think I had done a podcast, another identity podcast, and you saw the podcast, you reached out to me, and I looked at your profile. I said, oh, cool. Oh, we need a fraud person on here to talk about data and stuff like that. So I'm happy that you were able to join the show. But why don't you tell me about your trajectory in your career and why this particular area of fraud and authentication and AI, why does that interest you so much?
I think in general, I've always been driven to crime prevention. There's a good guy versus a bad guy. My family comes from a military and police force background, or lawyers too. My father's a patent lawyer, which is a little bit different than actually like jury trials. So I've always had that in my blood that I have to fight for something or I have to protect somebody. That's always been important to me. Likewise, I've always seen that there's this bad guy. And for me to understand that there's someone to go after, it logically in my head, it gives me a purpose to do something. And connecting those dots on how to stop that person has me jump out of bed in the morning. And I'm not only going to stop somebody, I'm going to help somebody too. I'm going to help a lot of people. So that's what makes me tick. But the way I got started within this was at a company called Cardinal Commerce. I started off in authentication. I was a very early on employee. We focused on 3D Secure, which you might know of. And I was there for 15 years until Visa bought us, and that was fun. Woo! And then I was fortunate enough to take some time off because of liquidity. And during that time, Fintechnology Group, which has always been a garage project, that's what it's always been, was a group of individuals that wanted to get together to understand the financial cloud. Because way back in the day, almost 10 years, it was a very new to businesses, especially banks, on migrating to the cloud. And Amazon was just coming out with AWS, or it's like 2 to 3 years old, and passing the test as a solution architect or whatever was extremely hard. And we were more of a study group, and we didn't even have a name, but we were just studying it, and we were going through this, and we just by chance knew some people that would like to know what we're learning right now. And so we shared that information more on an education standpoint. I was the fraud guy. I came in to help design their fraud platform. We had a back-end ops guy, DevOps. We had someone, myself was working on payment network. So all of those clients, that's how it started, but it stopped then pretty quickly. And I went into full employment and somebody else did. We're all friends. But after COVID, and actually just probably this year, I put a lot more time into it. The reason being is, first and foremost, I'm pursuing my EMBA at MIT. And what I'm pursuing at MIT, I think, is relevant. It's in artificial intelligence and strategy. And artificial intelligence goes hand in hand, I think, with stopping fraudulent behavior. You got to be a smart cop. You got to have good tools, and artificial intelligence is here. So I wanted to focus on it. I wanted to have my brain in learning mode. But definitely my comfort zone is working for a big bank and stopping a lot of people. And so that's what my career trajectory is. A lot of people want the fancy startup. I've done that before. I want to go to a bank. I want to go through the processes and procedures. I want to go through all that's involved with it. And I want to start off and build up their AI platform and allow people to understand it, just like we did with the cloud almost 10 years ago. And look at it now. It's not mysterious anymore. It wasn't cloudy, but now this whole AI thing is very cloudy. So that is how I got here and talking to Debbie Reynolds, the Data Diva.
Well, thank you for that. That's a great story. I think a trend that I see or a thread that I see in people like you who are coming to these technology spaces, you're fascinated by area, you take your own initiative to actually study and learn in that area and figure out where your skills are best suited. So that totally makes sense.
Yep.
Let's talk a little bit about just banking in general. So the internet that we know today, I guess Internet 2.0 or whatever, it was created for sharing. It was not created with security in mind. And so I think banking to me is at the forefront of what's happening in security on the internet because you have to be. So you have to stay ahead of the threats. Banks are always changing their security posture. They're already trying to learn. And as you say, leveraging AI even more so than they do now, it definitely helps some of those fraud things. But tell me how that all comes together with your education in AI. And what do you think you see for the future in banking?
Where banking has gotten right now is very sophisticated. Their number one branch, they'll tell you, is their statistics. I think it's like 80% or 85, close to 90% of people with a bank account have the app and they use it. That's a large amount of adoption. There's some people that have never walked into a branch. Capital One is a perfect example of that. So I'm a Capital One holder too. The app and the site are very important. And what they're holding is very important. The desktop, their mobile phone. So, and that's able to provide a tremendous amount of data to the bank to allow them to make sure that this is really the person that says it is. And if they do think it's suspicious, they could do another form of multi-factor authentication. But what's gotten so much better these past couple of years is the device data that we're able to get and our ability to use it. And the mobile networks, how they're improving, how technology related to GeoIP, there are so many great new services right now. And now what AI does, let's say that there's, if we still haven't got there, let's say that there's the no-brainer use cases that you could just do with rules. Don't take a transaction. If A equals B, don't take it. Okay. Let's say that there's in total 100 rules. The ones that you just make rules for is about 20. Now, what you get into further out there, the majority, say it's 70%, are going to be rules that are going to be managed by machine learning, where they're going to look for patterns, and those patterns are going to adjust themselves, and the machine will be adjust their rules and how it does learn. So it learns in session, or it could be taught based on synthetic data that it's given, but it's constantly learning. Now, what happens is with the last 10%, that's where AI really comes into place. Using the synthetic data, using the machine learning, it's able to look for transactions that fall outside of the curve and put those into action immediately on the website. So right now, it's not like a fraudster's coming in and they're trying to do 50 transactions in a row at a website. That's not what they're trying to do. They're very conservative. They're coming in really sneaky. If it's just somebody that wants to buy something, really, they're not going to force it through. So the AI is really going to help manage all of that, the majority of those transactions, and make it a lot simpler for us as humans to improve upon that actual technology that goes into it and create more rules on the other side while getting more clever and intelligent about the rules that we give it. So the features or the device information will continue to improve. How we provide it to the engine will continue to improve. And that's how the artificial intelligence platform with machine learning will evolve at every single bank. The more you throw at it, the better it gets. The more data, the better.
Yeah, that's true. So when you talked about mobile devices, so when I think about mobile devices, I guess I think about privacy because you're sharing a lot more data with banks or institutions than you would if you were just walking into a bank and just transacting on that analog level. So there's just a lot more data there. But what are your thoughts about that and privacy in general?
Yeah, that's a good question. If we go over to the EU, there's GDPR, and that's a lot different than the States. It comes to the point where that is a good privacy question because the device could give you a tremendous amount of information about somebody. And if the bank is using it truly the way that they're supposed to use it, is that good or bad? Just because it could be used for bad, should we not do it because we're America and that's freedom? It's a hard line in the sand. We can't do what we want. Forget about it, even if it's bad. So the privacy, obviously, you're going to have less of it with a bank. You're going to disclose more information to them. They're going to know more about you than anybody else in the world. The only thing they're not going to know about you is your health records. So they could know everything and anything. I mean, they'll know a tremendous amount of information about you. And they use that in order to provide better services to you as the client.
I think banks are very interesting, or banking and finance is very interesting. Obviously, if someone goes to a bank, they trust them. So you have first party one-on-one relationship with the bank. But then also banks have other companies they work with and they want you to have their services. So that means that they're sharing your data with other companies. And that's fine. I mean, I typically don't have any problems with that, but I think one of the things that we're seeing in the news is a lot of these data breaches and stuff like that, and people are really concerned. The good thing about banking that I found is that if they see that something fraudulent is happening or you contact them, they jump on it right away. So they definitely don't let it linger. But just what are your thoughts? What consumers need to be thinking about in that data breach space? Because we get so many of those notices, I think people are desensitized to it now.
Yeah, all the big banks have a CreditWise or a TransUnion running in the background that'll do a soft credit check that doesn't hit your credit score because they want to consistently increase your balance or let you know that your credit score is going down. Okay. What these services also do is they're checking the dark net for people that have put your email out there, your name, your social security number. They're doing that for you. And it's just out there. I had my email address and three passwords that I used to use. I actually had one still being used on Leonardo. It's an AI image site. And I knew exactly where that password was used, but they had six other passwords that were incorrect for that one email address. So you could take action on those. And that data breach could have come from anywhere. We don't know. But the places that they're looking is limited because why those were found is because they were being exchanged for money on the dark net. Now, what happens when we see foreign players acting as organizations doing the same thing where they're not exchanging it? They're not even using the dark net or using closed networks. They're using the same privacy that a bank would use in order to manage that stuff. They get in, they grab it, they bring it back, and then they do what they need to do with it, and then they go out clean. They wash it. The data comes in. It's like washing money. The data comes in, they wash it, and then they put it back out in the market. So whenever you hear people like, oh, you got to wash the money, embezzle it, yeah, that's what they're doing with data.
Data embezzlement.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's true. Tell me a little bit about the effect of AI on fraudsters being able to do more fraudulent things with AI. So I know that you're talking about, and you're very well versed in and going in the direction of let's use AI to make banking better and safer and reduce fraud. But then we also have these same criminals who get the same AI that you do. They probably are in your MBA program for all I know. And they're trying to figure out how to do bad things with AI. What do you think about that?
That is true. With every type of new technology, you're going to have someone try to use it for bad and someone who's going to use it for good. We'll see that. Luckily, we've seen everybody in on the financial space really jump on the opportunity to deliver AI systems. So we got a lot of people stepping up, going in the ring. They're ready for the fight. So we're going to have to see how it's going down. And I'm sure there's a lot of people looking at ways that AI could be used in order to commit fraud automatically. So that would probably be where exploiting a fraud system with AI could be very complex, depending on what you're looking for and what you're trying to do. And I don't think we really have it spelled out right now, as opposed to what we have in the fraud industry. You can't pick up a publication or say there's not a core strategy for it. There's not a core solution for it or a core subset of solutions. This is your device fingering company. Here's your fraud analytics company. There's AI companies too that are in this space, but they're not AI companies that stop fraud. So there's two different flavors of each bucket. So it's hard to say that. Who's going to do that? I'm rooting for the person that's going to say, oh, we got that. And I check every publication every day. And I hope there's someone out there.
Well, these threats will just continue to happen, so we just have to be vigilant, and hopefully people are coming to the table with new solutions. But one of the things that I'm noticing, I want your thoughts on this, is that you watch these movies about like a bank heist or something and very elaborate schemes and stuff like that. And so what I'm seeing is more people using AI to trick people who have access to get them to use their access. We're seeing with OpenAI, they have a voice cloning thing now. So if a bank or a different institution is using voice as a factor for authentication, that could be easily spoofed if that person has additional other information. Me, I'm very concerned about that because if someone's spoofing your grandmother and they have her information, she has all the right answers to be able to get access to her bank. So what do you think about that?
That is a real problem, and it has to be addressed by AI because the way it's done right now, if you've ever seen the movie Beekeeper, it's an action movie, but the bad guys, they have a call center that gets people to wire their money out of their bank account to them. But it's got to be a person on the other line that coaxes them through the questions. So what they're doing with AI is those sessions can only go out in the movie. Occasionally they'll get one person on the hook and then they give it to the boss, like stock deal. Now with AI, as they improve it, they're able to go out to everybody over the age of 65 in Brecksville, Ohio, who banks with PNC, and they will send them by mail something. They'll give them a phone call and they'll also provide them with an email. So they're going to get those to come online. Now they're going to do one Brecksville. They'll do 400 cities across the world. The only thing that's going to stop them is how well the AI works in terms of language barriers and accents. So that is a very real threat. Thankfully, I've seen a lot of deepfake programs that are coming out. I'm actually a part of an initiative right now that's trying to set some goals on it. Deep faking is an issue, and it especially is an issue when it's looking for people's information and to use them as puppets like that. Because if it goes to 1 million people, I bet you if you did it to, we should probably have some research done on this. How many people would fall for this? I bet you over the age of 65, break it down by demographics, I bet you 1 out of every 10 people would fall for this. Email, phone, you send them something in the mail, you'd be like, I'm going to call you on this day. Send them by email. I'm going to call you on this day. Here's the name of your banker. Those go out. The day comes up. 20 million phone calls go out. All that money just goes into one bank account overseas in one day. Could you imagine that? And it's 1 out of 5 people do that. It would be like it'd be an apocalypse.
Yeah, totally. A guy told me his mom, he just called, "Hey, mom, how you doing?" She lives in a different town than he does. And he just called her randomly, "Hey, what you doing?" She's like, "I'm on my way to the police station." So it's like, what? What happened? He said, "Oh, I got a call, said they were going to cancel my Social Security something if I didn't give them money. And they told me to meet them outside the police station. So she had gone to the bank and took money out, and she was on her way to meet the guy at the police station to give him some money. I think education really is key, especially very much for younger people and also older people who may not understand. They just don't want to be in trouble. So it makes them feel nervous. And a lot of times they don't want to get their kids involved and stuff like that. But what do you think?
100%. And that's exactly what my example provided, but it still is in an automated fashion using AI. And it also is the same situation that comes out in Beekeeper, the movie. That's happening all over the place today. It's happening right now. There's millions and millions of people on planet Earth who don't understand technology, but they have technology in hand. They have a computer to look at Facebook and their grandkids. They have a smartphone so they could call with their grandkids, do Facebook, do all of that stuff, FaceTime, but they haven't caught up with the fact of what security, what's bogus and what's not. And they don't search the internet. They're not on the internet looking for things. They're not using ChatGPT. It's FaceTime. It's use an app like, oh, I like to play crosswords. And they don't search, so they don't understand, and they're not looking at anything that's going to teach them that. And they're not interested in it too. So that's a whole generation of people. I'll tell you, even I fell for it once. I got something in the mail. I just bought a new car and it was for car insurance. It looked exactly like my dealership. And I called the 1-800 number and I almost fell for it. So even I could get duped by these things. So that's where we're at. They don't understand the technology behind it, but they have it. So it's almost like there's a big target on their heads. They're the ideal people to go after. It's like, how do we protect them? Because they work their whole lives for what's in their bank, and they just want to pass it along when they pass. So that's a really sad story to hear when they get ripped off, because sometimes it doesn't come back.
That's so true. And I highly recommend people, like if you're at a family gathering, be the nerd for 5 minutes and say something to your family members about fraud and protecting them. Or I say, hey, this thing happened, just to give them an idea of what's out there so that at least they can pick up the phone and call someone if they have any question, and not like this woman go to the bank and start taking money out and giving it to people.
Yeah, and continually reinforce that. So my mom buys stuff on Amazon, but if she's ever got to send money out of her bank account, she has to call me. And she should never do that because it's too complex the way it is. And she is not tech savvy. So that is a good rule of thumb. And I like that idea. It's actually very good. Be the tech support for your family and just announce it. Make it simple. Don't give anyone money that you meet on the internet.
That's true. That's true. Your MBA program focus on AI. What is it that people need to know about AI that you feel like doesn't really come through on all the articles? I don't know about you. I'm seeing stuff like the world is going to end in 2 years because of AI. And then the other end of the spectrum is it's going to cure cancer. So it's neither of those things. But what message would you give to someone who doesn't fully understand or comprehend AI right now?
It's not going to go as fast as we think. And that's it. I just get the feeling that the brakes are going to be pushed on a lot of it because of the adoption at the very highest level of universities and businesses who are scared of this. And I have a feeling the next president, that term, will put in legislation or maybe even a bill right away to stop AI or have a progression of it. Because if they don't, there's some crazy classification, some crazy claim in 2045, and the brakes are going to be slowed down 100%. They're just not going to be allowed to go out willy-nilly. And I think there'll be criminal charges with it that follow, not just financial charges. They'll be put in jail, like maximum security.
Yeah, I think the thing that concerns me, and I think you're right, because first of all, digital transformation is difficult in companies, period. And so they bring on AI and it creates a whole nother level of complexity. To me, there are only going to be certain types of companies that are going to really be able to run with AI. And then also they have to think about it in terms of a human risk level. So if you're doing something that's minimal human risk, no one cares. Go ahead and do it. But when you're dealing with data of humans or something that could possibly harm someone, I see that they're going to be looking really closely at what people are doing. And I agree. I don't think it's going to move as fast, even though it's moving super fast now because there isn't really any super hot regulation except for the EU. Obviously, there's activity happening in the US, the government level, and there's a lot of talk about it, but I think it will slow down, not necessarily because of regulation, but because it is complex. What do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree. I have a rule. If you watch a movie like back from the 80s or 90s, 70s or whatever, and there's a problem that comes up that's catastrophic and it's a result of something we did, like dropping bombs or creating Terminators using artificial intelligence, like handheld devices. If the movie created it, we got to really think hard about it because it's going to be something that's going to be used for good, or very bad damage. So that's what I think. If a movie says it's going to happen, it's going to happen.
Right, you have a thought in people's head already.
One of my weird things when I watch the older movies, I'll be like, I keep a tally in my head. If I watch a sci-fi movie from the 80s, I'll be like, look, it's out. In general, you could see things like that was invented a couple of years ago, or automatic driving cars in The Fifth Element. Oh, I was watching Demolition Man. So in Demolition Man, they say TikTok
Oh, yeah?
during the crime scene. Yeah. They use artificial intelligence to look for people and look for bad people, but it's only used by the police. So it's interesting. So it's hard for me to watch movies now because I'm like, look, they were right. And a lot of times they are. It's a fun way to watch movies, especially when you're in the industry.
Yes, it's true. I like movies about the future. There are a lot of evil robot future movies. Some of it, I guess you take with a grain of salt, but you do see a lot of those things come up. I saw recently the original Westworld with Yul Brynner. And I just couldn't believe it. The stuff that was happening then, I'm like, oh my God, that's happening right now. I think my concern with AI is that we're going to abdicate our human judgment. There was a scene in the movie where there was a control room where the tech people were controlling the robots that were out in the little Westworld thing. And the computers or the robots locked them into the room and they couldn't get out because they didn't have enough air and they died because of that. And it's like, oh, you shouldn't let the robot control stuff like that.
Ready Player One is a perfect example of the metaverse. Everyone's living in a universe that's just a game. Even though the device looks the same, the way that they're moving looks the same. Man, people never leave it. There's so many, so many. I just think that's the one thing Hollywood does well. They're very clever.
Yes. Actually, I have a story about Minority Report. So when Steven Spielberg was doing Minority Report, he actually interviewed futurists who work on technology because he wanted to make sure that the movie was relevant in 20 years. And I think they hit it out of the park because so much of what was in that movie that was so shocking back then, a lot of that is coming to pass now.
Yeah. It would be interesting if humans weren't done evolving instead of the AI.
I think we're gonna have to, because we have so much talk about artificial intelligence, I think we're gonna have to redefine what human intelligence is. Because to me, artificial intelligence isn't really intelligent, but it can do things that humans would do. But I think we need to be able to separate how humans are different than artificial technology.
Yeah, for sure.
If it were the world according to you, Michael, and we did everything that you said, what would be your wish for privacy or technology anywhere in the world, whether that be regulation, human behavior, or technology?
This is pretty tactical, but I think it would be extremely helpful and very much in the near term. The ability to link all your devices that you access the bank with together, no matter where they're at in the world, and be able to identify them for just to increase the authentication score, just to lower the risk. I would wish for that. And I would also, I'm wishing for the new device updates coming up to be providing much more metadata than they're providing today. My big wishes are too crazy.
Yeah.
Those are palatable.
Well, yeah, right. Because one person can have multiple devices, and you don't want the company to think that those are different people. So they understand that these devices belong to this person. Maybe it gives that person a more unique signature and helps you better manage that person's account information, stops fraud as well. Good wish, a good wish. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. It was fun for us to be able to chat. And so we'll keep in touch for sure.
Yep. Thanks, Debbie.
You're welcome. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.